what if we could create organizations where everybody led, where everybody had an authentic, strong voice? Wouldn't organizations perform better in that approach? But even more importantly, wouldn't that serve humanity better?
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Let's talk about lumber. Yes, lumber. Meet Kevin Hancock, Chief Executive Officer of Hancock Lumber Company. Kevin Hancock is an award-winning author and speaker, the CEO of Hancock Lumber Company, one of the oldest and best-known family businesses in America. He is a recipient of the Ed Muskie Access to Justice Award, the Habitat for Humanity Spirit of Humanity Award, and Boy Scouts of America Distinguished Citizen Award, and the Timber Processing Magazine Person of the Year Award. Kevin is also a member of the Maine Indian Tribal State Commission. He is a frequent visitor to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Kevin is an advocate of strengthening the voices of all individuals within a company or a community through listening, empowering, and shared leadership. Kevin is also the founder of The Seventh Power, a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing economic sovereignty for Native communities across America. Kevin Hancock, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How you doing?
Michael, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very, very much for joining me on another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. I love these episodes because these episodes always leave me with so much inspiration. I go in there thinking we're going to be talking about one thing, and it always ends up, on this crazy journey. Your personal journey is remarkable, and I think is so fascinating. And I'm really curious to hear about your own insights, especially given the book that you wrote and your personal experiences beyond the fact that you're the chief executive officer of a lumber company I believe, for 2 centuries, this company's been in existence, right?
Yes, that's right. It's one of the oldest companies in America. We're in our 7th generation, and the company goes back to the 1840s.
Incredible. Unbelievable. So this is you're definitely, the leader that is running the oldest company that I've had on this show. And so already I'm extremely honored. Thank you very much. And to get things out of the way, tell me a little bit about, your voice right now, because I want to get this out of the way so that we can now put this in context, the experience that you've had, which is obviously a big pillar in your book as well, in the context of your great, leadership journey and the personal journey that you've been on.
Sure. So in 2010, at the peak of the national housing and mortgage market collapse, I quite suddenly began to have trouble speaking, something I'd always taken for granted. And honestly, Michael, as a CEO, done a lot of. When you think about it, in some ways, if you're a CEO, your voice is your tool. It's what you use. And suddenly I couldn't really use it. It turned out I'd acquired a rare neurological voice disorder that I'd never heard of called spasmodic dysphonia. I've gotten quite a bit better. At the time, there's no way I would have been able to do the show with you. I literally couldn't force out more than a few broken sentences at a time, and it became really difficult for people to hear me all the time. And so on very short notice, in a bit of an economic crisis, I had to come up with quite a different approach to leading. Wow.
I can only imagine. So, before we get to the leading, paint me the picture of where you are, 2010, you're in the greatest housing crisis, I believe, ever, starting all the way in 2007, lumber company. I guess it was affected quite a bit from that experience. What's happening?
Yeah. So lots of pressure on our industry. Our company operates on 16 sites across Maine and New Hampshire. We have sawmills, lumber yards, and over 600 people work at the company. And in 2010, backing up 2 years, in the span of about 24 months, our revenue fell by 50%, cut in half, without losing a customer. It's just the economy shrunk that dramatically, that quickly. So it was really stressful, long story short.
I can only imagine. And so you're going through this experience, and your voice is changing, your ability to lead through voice is different. And you're mentioning that you have to harness different tools. Take me back to that exact moment. Is it scary? Is it stressful? Is it confusing? All of the above? What's going on through your mind as a leader?
Yeah, it was everything you just mentioned. It was stressful. It was confusing. But like humans tend to do in difficult situations, you fight and you don't really know the way out, but you just dig in. So at first, well, to keep it really simple, what I ended up doing is this. When it's hard to talk, you quickly come up with strategies for doing less of it. And my strategy that just materialized was essentially at work to answer a question with a question, thereby putting the conversation right back on the other person. So picture this, Michael. Someone would come up to me at work with a question or a problem because I was the CEO, and historically I would have given an answer and a directive and instructions, but now I couldn't really do that. So this is what I started saying. I started saying simply, wow, that's a great question. What do you think we should do about it?
Wow. I love that.
And what struck me over time, now, mind you, at first, I was doing that just to protect my voice. But here's what struck me over time and changed the way I thought about leadership. After having asked that question hundreds of times, what I started to realize was this: people actually already knew what to do. It turned out they almost never actually needed instruction or direction from above. All they really needed was the encouragement and the safety in terms of the culture for them to trust their own voice.
I love it. I love it. So actually you discovered by, encouraging them to, to speak more and to voice their opinions, they actually came up with the solutions themselves, probably giving them more courage for future times. And you're actually creating leaders within them and enabling them to take more proactivity and more action-based behavior, right?
Correct. And this is where I started to actually get quite excited about what happened to me. And I came to see my own voice limitations as a bit of a gift and an invitation to strengthen the voices of others. And that's when I got really interested in inverting the traditional leadership model, which typically collects power. And I got really interested in this idea of dispersing power. And what if we could create organizations where everybody led, where everybody had an authentic, strong voice? Wouldn't organizations perform better in that approach? But even more importantly, wouldn't that serve humanity better?
Right. Now, for people around you, as they're experiencing the shift, And obviously you're changing as a leader. They're changing as micro leaders within this organizations in different hierarchies. How are they responding to this? Is this a natural, behavior that they might not even have realized that is happening? Do you then see them go and employ that with others in their domain? What shifts are happening within your company?
Yeah, it definitely took a while because the traditional model of leadership and followership is so deeply ingrained in almost everybody from childhood right up through school and then into the world of work. But once we stuck with it over a period of years, it tipped quite quickly. And I thought a lot about why, Michael, and here's what I've concluded. That new leadership model of dispersing power is really much more aligned with how nature actually works and flows. I had a bit of an epiphany in the the Arizona desert. One evening, I was watching sunset, and these 5 words plopped into my head. In nature, power is dispersed. And I looked around at that desert scene, and I said out loud, I had a leadership chat with the environment around me. I said, where's the capital of this desert? Where's its headquarters? Where's the CEO? Where are all the managers and the supervisors? And I actually looked at a small group of cactus and said, which one of you is in charge of all the others? And in every case, as you know, the answer was self-evident. The leadership power of nature is dispersed in all its pieces, big and small. And humans who are a part of nature, not detached from it, ultimately aspire, I believe, to organize in that same way.
Incredible. I can literally picture you in the Arizona desert sitting there and seeing this unfold, and I can only imagine, the intrinsic feeling of truly understanding it and embracing it, and not just hearing it in a business school lecture, but actually experience it firsthand. Now, once you started transitioning to your new voice and to your new leadership style, you also went on a personal journey, right? That changed the way that you think about the world around you and your priorities. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, in 2012, I began traveling from Maine, where I live in the northeast corner of the country, out to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota. Pine Ridge is the biggest, most historic, most traditionally disenfranchised, and today the poorest, yet beautiful in so many ways, of all the Sioux reservations on the Northern Plains. It's a place I've now been over 24 times. I go back twice a year and have lots of friends there. And here was the first big connection. At Pine Ridge, I met an entire community that did not feel fully heard, that felt as if a piece of their authentic voice had been taken or stolen from them. And because of my own voice condition in the oddest of ways, it struck a chord with me, and it got me thinking about the history of leadership. And I concluded, unfortunately, over time, that leaders through history have probably done more historically to limit, restrict, direct, and manage the voices of others than to free them. And that's really when it hit me. My voice was an invitation to try to model something very different.
I love it. I just love the insights, and I love how you're looking at your role as a leader, and you're very intentionally saying, we're, instead of harnessing power and embracing the power, you're actually saying, okay, let's disperse it and let's create micro leaders and have them be in the same mindset that, their leadership is not measured by how much power they can gain, by how much power they can then continue to disperse and to motivate others. I think that's incredible. Kevin, I have to hear about what it's like to run a lumber company. I'm coming from the tech world, and most of the guests are in the tech world. But you're running a company, and it's more than 200 years old. What is that? What is that like? What is running a company like that like?
Well, it's fascinating and complex and yet simple all at the same time. So two thoughts come to mind. One, it's really cool at this day and age to work with a natural resource that's renewable, recyclable, and biodegradable. It's just a great environmental product. Second, the other thing that really strikes me over time is just the history or the longevity of keeping a company going across multiple generations and through multiple transitions. If I made a list of all of the events that were going to be the demise of our company just in my lifetime, from globalization to the age of Walmart to the internet, all of it, that you really have to be an entrepreneur in any company, whether it's new or old, because you're constantly reinventing yourself.
Right. How do you ignite innovation in a field like lumber when you're seeing, this transformation that is happening around you, whether it be Walmart, globalization, 3D printing? You mentioned you have to be an entrepreneur in a company that is, incredibly old. How do you even begin to then, talk to the board of directors, talk to your employees, to the other leadership, and say, listen, guys, we have to be on top of what's happening in the world here because we have to remain relevant?
Right. Great question. It's really, I think, about culture and keeping a healthy sense of urgency and the right dose of paranoia about your business. And as everyone in business knows, no matter what you've done in the past, the focus has got to stay on where you're going in the future. We have a saying we use at our company that is simply this: always changing to remain the same. So what remains the same, ideally, are our core values, but everything about how we manufacture, logistics, engage customers, engage employees, handle products, all of that constantly has to be up for grabs. But to the point we're discussing today, when you disperse power and get everybody thinking about leading change, change becomes so much easier because it's happening organically across the organization. It's not being pushed through it. It's just flowing through the company.
I love it. Kevin, take me back a little bit to your own upbringing, your own childhood even, 10 years old, elementary school, middle school. What are you really curious about? What sparks your interest?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I was fascinated even then with the American West. I remember playing on the floor at my grandparents' house with cowboys in India, something you probably wouldn't even see today. But I was really fascinated by the idea of a frontier. And then really, when I got a little older, historically fascinated by the second half of the 19th century, when our nation's quote-unquote manifest destiny ran into the Plains tribes. That period just is human history in a nutshell to me, a microcosm, and it all fascinates me.
Beautiful. And if you look at your life today, whether it's professional or personal, where do you draw your inspiration on a daily basis? Where do you look out for when you need inspiration for what to do and when to do it?
to the human spirit, it's a broad answer, but I see it everywhere. I'm blessed to really see the innate beauty and sacred power of the human spirit. And you can find that in everyone. It lives in everyone. And when you see the world that way, you're really surrounded by inspiring people.
Beautiful. I love it. If you were to think of a few words that would describe Kevin Hancock, or that anybody around you would think of when they think of Kevin, what are a few words that would come to mind?
I would say or hope striving, empowering, and hopeful or optimistic.
I can definitely see, especially the optimism, shine through this conversation. And I'll leave you with one last question for me and my friends. Young entrepreneurs looking to become good leaders, not just start. In the tech world, everybody's talking about starting companies and being successful and making good technologies, but few people talk about being good leaders and what does it mean to be a successful leader. So if you had to give your own 2 cents on what young entrepreneurs like myself we should be thinking about intentionally as we go about our own entrepreneurial journey and leadership journey, what would that be?
That's such a great question. I would say that, again, that leadership is really about giving other people more power, and that human organizations, including corporations, should all have the same highest mission, which is to advance humanity. And humanity is advanced in the end, one human at a time, starting with the people right beside us.
I love it. Kevin, thank you very, very much. This was wonderful and inspiring. And thank you for taking time and for your energy. And stay safe and stay healthy and continue inspiring many, many more. Thank you.
I'm thankful we're connected and love to be with you today, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you very much.